On my 70th birthday, I discovered my daughter's shocking secret, so I left them heartbroken. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun streamed in through the kitchen window, casting golden streaks across the table. My daughters had thrown me a party. Their excited chatter filled the air, laughter like a warm embrace. I smiled, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. But then came the moment. My youngest, Clara, stood up, her hands trembling like leaves in a windstorm. The room silenced, every eye trained on her. She glanced nervously at her sister, Lena, whose face had turned white, shock washing over her features. "Mom, there's something we need to tell you." My heart raced, pounding like a drum echoing through my chest. "What is it, sweetie?" The words tumbled out, laced with dread. I could sense a heaviness in the air, the weight of unspoken truths. "There are secrets that wrap around your heart," squeezing tighter with each hesitation. As Clara spoke, her voice wavered, the tremors barely masked. "For years we kept something from you." Each syllable crashed against my soul, sending shockwaves rippling through me. "We had to." Questions swirled, a tempest in my mind. What could possibly be that important? My daughters were like my lifelines, my world. The echoes of our shared laughter flickered, fading into the shadows of uncertainty. Memories morphed into whispers of doubt. Lena finally found her voice, sharp and unwavering. "It's not what you think, Mom. We never meant to hurt you." But her words felt like daggers, each one precise, each one opening a wound. My chest tightened, a heavy stone lodged where my heart used to beat freely. Suddenly, the room felt too small, the walls closing in, suffocating with the weight of revelation. "You need to understand," Clara choked out, tears spilling like rain. "It's about Dad. He's not who you think he is." The air left my lungs, cold and empty. All these years, the steady rhythm of our lives had been anchored in a lie? I blinked, the room slowly spinning. "What do you mean?" My voice trembled, quaking from the fear that had clenched my throat. Their gaze dropped, shame painting their cheeks. "He has another family. Another life." The words hung in the air, dense and suffocating, as if they were tangible things that could choke me. I staggered back, bracing myself against the edge of the counter. All those memories, all those moments shared, were they all tainted? The world felt unsteady beneath my feet. Heart pounding, mind racing, I grasped at the fragments of reality as they shattered around me. How long had they known? Why hadn't they said anything? My daughters, my girls, had they also been trapped in this web of lies, just as I was? It was all too much, too twisted, too cruel. "Mom, we're so sorry." Clara's voice broke through the chaos, but I could barely hear her over the roar of my thoughts. I felt detached, as if I were floating above, watching myself crumble. All the laughter, the love stripped bare, leaving nothing but echoes of betrayal. My heart sank deep into despair. How do you begin to process this? Betrayal etched into my soul, despair wrapping around me like a shroud. As I turned to leave, a heavy silence enveloped the room, filled with unspoken apologies and broken dreams. Clara's cries pierced through the walls as I walked away. I didn't know if I could ever come back. I stepped out into the cool night air, tears streaming down my face. The stars twinkled overhead, indifferent to my pain, each one a reminder of everything I had lost. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cool night air wrapped around me like a thick fog, each breath an exercise in effort as the weight of my daughter's revelations settled into my bones. I barely registered the soft rustle of leaves overhead or the distant murmur of late-night traffic. Everything felt muted, a dull cacophony overshadowed by the storm of my thoughts. Where was I supposed to go? I felt adrift in a familiar yet foreign world, and the only thing I could grasp were the words, he has another family. With each step away from our home, it felt as if I were walking further away from my past me memories, my identity, the tapestry of a life woven tightly with the threads of love and shared laughter. All I could do was wander, my feet taking me to the park where I had spent countless afternoons watching my daughters play, their laughter ringing clear against the backdrop of a setting sun. I found an empty bench and sank onto it, the cool metal biting into my skin. As I sat there, the tears flowed freely, mixing with the night air, and I let myself remember. The birthdays, the holidays, the evenings spent cooking dinner together, everything seemed eclipsed by the gravity of betrayal. How was I supposed to reconcile what I knew with what I thought I knew? The crunch of gravel pulled me from my thoughts. A figure approached, and for a moment, I braced myself to face someone I didn't want to speak to. Perhaps a stranger had witnessed my heartbreak. But as the silhouette emerged, I recognized the familiar gait of my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, a sweet woman in her late 60s who often brought over cookies that always seemed to brighten my day. "Rose?" she called softly, her voice gentle as she stepped closer. "Is everything all right?" I could only nod, though the tears betrayed me, spilling down my cheeks like a waterfall. "Not really," I managed to whisper, feeling a spark of kindness in her presence. "Come sit here," she said, sitting next to me. She didn't press for details, and for that, I was grateful. Instead, she handed me a tissue from her pocket. "It's all right to cry, dear. You can share whenever you're ready." So, I let her sit in silence beside me, the unspoken bond forming as she offered comfort without demanding answers. In that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in a world turned upside down, kindness still existed in the crevices of every day. As I wiped my tears, I sensed something in her eyes, understanding mixed with concern. "Sometimes, when we uncover secrets, it feels like the ground has fallen away beneath us," she said softly, and the sincerity in her voice wrapped around me like the warmest blanket. "But secrets also have a way of bringing new truths to light." I couldn't believe her words. New truths? Did I even want to know what lay behind this curtain of deception? Just then, my phone buzzed in my purse. Its sudden intrusion felt like a jolt, but as I glanced at the screen, I froze. Her name was emblazoned across the display. My heart raced at the thought of answering. Would she want to try and explain more? Would it dig the wound deeper? But as the phone buzzed again, uncertainty gripped me. I looked at Mrs. Jenkins, who offered me an encouraging nod. It felt as though she knew some piece of me was ready to confront this chaos, ready to seek an understanding, even if it was painful. With trembling fingers, I answered the call. "Lena, Mom," her voice trembled on the other end, filled with urgency. "Please, just listen. There's something else you need to know." A chill slid down my spine. Another revelation? Did I have the strength to face more revelations? "Please, just let me say this," she pleaded, her voice thick with unshed tears. "It's about Dad. He's not just hiding a family, there's something more. I need to explain. It's urgent. You have to come home." "Why? What could possibly be more?" I demanded, my heart thundering in my chest. Each word felt heavy, charged with a troubling intensity that set my nerves on edge. "Just please. There's something I didn't tell Clara yet. Something we've both kept hidden from you until now. Please come home." As she spoke, a chill of apprehension coiled deep inside me. The ground beneath my feet felt as though it was shifting again, and yet a part of me knew I had no choice but to return to that house, to face whatever awaited me there. "All right," I whispered, though dread constricted around my heart. "I'll be there." Hanging up, the night stretched before me, dark and foreboding. As I rose from the bench, the stars seemed to glimmer, distant yet steadfast, reminding me that even in the shadows, hope could find a way to light the path. But what lay ahead? What more could shatter the quickly crumbling world I once knew? The questions threaded tighter in my mind as I began walking home, heart pounding with every step, unaware of the new secrets and the heartache still to come. The shadows deepened around me as I retraced my steps home, each heartbeat echoing the chaos swirling inside my head. The park that had once been a sanctuary now felt like an alien landscape, echoing with the laughter of my children, now tinged with betrayal. The path I walked was familiar yet estranged, like a song I once knew, now altered with dissonant notes. As I neared my house, the lights glowed warmly in sharp contrast to the chill of the night air. Memories of family dinners filled my mind, scenes of a once happy life that now seemed sculpted into a cruel joke. The tension in my chest clenched tighter, each breath a reminder of the uncertainty that waited for me on the other side of that door. I paused for a moment, taking a breath to gather my frayed nerves. Butterflies danced in my stomach, a mixture of dread and anticipation. I wanted to believe that whatever Lena had to say could turn the tide somehow, but doubt seeped through me like a slow poison. What new truth could be woven into the already tangled fabric of this mess? The door creaked as I stepped inside. The aroma of the night's dinner lingered, a flavor that felt bittersweet, now once a comfort, now a cruel reminder of domestic normalcy that had been shattered. I felt the weight of the silence as I entered. It hung thick in the air, charged with unspoken words waiting to explode. Lena was already sitting on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Clara stood nearby, her arms crossed defensively, her expression a mix of sadness and frustration. The sight tugged painfully at my heart. These were the girls I raised, yet they felt like strangers to me now, burdened by secrets I had yet to uncover. "Mom," Lena started, her voice trembling but determined. "I'm so glad you came back." I took a deep breath, eyeing both of them. "What is this about? What more could you possibly need to reveal?" My tone held a forceful edge, one born from years of love twisted with anguish. Lena exchanged a quick glance with Clara before looking back at me. We haven't been completely honest about Dad's situation," she admitted. "It's more complicated than we realized, and we wanted to protect you, but you need to know." "Protect me from what?" I asked, fear creeping into the corners of my mind. Clara suddenly stepped forward, her voice quaking with emotion. "It's not just a family, Mom. There's a child. A brother or sister, someone you've never met." A jolt of disbelief shot through me, and I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all, but all that escaped was a choked gasp. "A sibling?" The weight of the word felt unbearable on my chest, pressing down with an intensity that threatened to suffocate me. "Yes," Lena continued, her gaze unwavering. "A half-sibling you didn't know about. He never intended for you to find out, but the truth surfaced, and my world felt like it was shattering around me, a cascade of broken glass and jagged edges." "And why didn't you tell me sooner? How could you keep something so monumental from me?" "It wasn't the right time," Clara said softly, her voice strained. "We were trying to figure out how to deal with it ourselves first, to understand it. But now, things are changing even more. We felt you needed to know, especially now." "Especially now?" I echoed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "What do you mean by that?" Lena licked her lips, hesitating for just a moment. "He's going to come here. We've invited him. He wants to meet you." The room plunged into a suffocating silence, my mind racing at the impossible implications of her words. I felt like I was spiraling, the ground shaking beneath my feet. "You did what?" I said, my voice rising as disappointment cut deep. I needed to digest that my husband had not only hidden a family but a child who would soon be at our doorstep. "Mom, please try to understand," Lena implored. "We thought it was the best way to confront the truth. He might have information about Dad, and what's been going on might help us figure this out." The idea that I would have to face his child, a living reminder of my husband's betrayal, was almost too much to bear. I wasn't ready for this. Yet, it seemed my daughters somehow believed they could shield me from the storm that swirled just beyond the treetops. Why do I feel like I'm the only one who isn't in control of my life? "I need space," I said, backing away slightly. The frantic flutter of footsteps echoed from the staircase, and before I could react, Caleb, my husband, appeared, his presence crashing into the room as if fate had timed it perfectly. Every part of me screamed to turn and run, to escape the turbulence of a world collapsing inward. His eyes widened as he took in the scenario that painted itself in front of him, confusion etching deep lines into his brow. "Rose?" he called out, stepping closer, his voice a rough cascade through the tension. "What's going?" "Shut up. You cannot pretend ignorance now." The words poured out like venom, a torrent of pain mixed with betrayal. But what could he say? What possible excuse could he conjure when the pieces were already laid bare? The three of us were gathered around him now, the collisions of our stories unfolding in a single haunting moment. I saw guilt etched on his face, the distance between us stretching impossibly wide, and just then, the doorbell rang, a sharp chime reverberating through the air, the arrival of a truth I had been desperately trying to avoid. The house, suddenly charged with electric tension, held its breath as we all turned, waiting for the revelation that lay just outside that door. The doorbell continued to ring, echoing in the tight-knit silence of the room, each time a cruel reminder of the unraveling threads of my life. I felt my heart racing, a drumbeat of dread as the reality of the moment pressed down on me. Caleb stood frozen, his expression shifting from confused to horrified, while my daughter's eyes darted to me, their wide gazes searching for a hint, a flicker of understanding. "I can't do this," I finally whispered, my voice barely above a tremor. It felt like a confession more than a declaration. "I can't face anyone right now, especially not him," but the world would not listen to my silent pleas. Time moved forward with relentless momentum as Lena stepped forward, summoning her courage. "Mom, we have to let him in. If there's any chance he can help us understand Dad's actions, we need to take it.no." The word fell from my lips, sharp and vehement. How could she think for a second that facing the very embodiment of Caleb's deception would solve anything? The jagged edges of my emotions flared. "You don't understand what that would mean for Muhad. It would mean for us, maybe," said Clara, her voice quaking, "but it could also mean a way to heal, to understand why he did this. Maybe he has answers." The bell chimed again, its insistence loud and unbearable. I met Caleb's gaze, and for a fleeting moment, I found a flicker of the man I once loved buried beneath layers of betrayal and regret. But even that seemed worlds away, overshadowed by the weight of the unfolding truth. "Whatever answers he has won't matter," I said, brushing past them with shaky determination. "I can't." But before I could reach the sanctuary of my own room, Caleb grasped my wrist gently, an unexpected kindness slicing through the storm. "Rose, please. Just let's hear him out. For our girl's sake, if nothing else." I opened my mouth to protest but saw the pleading in his eyes. A part of me didn't want to give him that power, yet there was another part, one that truly cared about the daughters we had raised together, who had become so entangled in this mess that it felt cruel to deny them a chance for clarity, however painful it might be. With a heavy sigh, I turned back, the weight of my decision pressing down like a physical object. "Fine," I said, my voice steady but laced with resolve. "But you need to take responsibility for whatever unfolds from here." Caleb nodded, the brief flicker of hope in his eyes giving way to solemnity. He moved towards the door, but as he approached, something inside me twisted uncomfortably. I was standing at a precipice, teetering between the fragility of family and the desperation of wanting to protect what was left of it. Caleb opened the door, the cool air rushing in to greet us, and before I could steel my resolve, my breath caught in my throat. There, standing in the threshold, was a young man, his features a blend of Caleb's and someone else's, carrying a youthful mirror of betrayal and confusion. The resemblance was unmistakable yet unsettling, as if the universe had crafted a new chapter from the remnants of my life's novel. "Hello," he said, his voice steady but edged with uncertainty. "I'm Owen. I am here to meet my family." The name dropped into the room like a stone into a still pond, rippling through the silence and casting shadows over the fragile remnants of our lives. My daughters gasped softly, and I felt my heart fracture, splitting the cracks wider between my husband and me, between my dreams and my reality. I wanted to scream, to hide, to say it was all a mistake, but no words formed. It was as if the universe had conspired to thrust this truth upon me, and I was left reeling, suspended in disbelief. "Mom, this is your son," Lena whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Her attempt to bridge the gap between our fury and the reality of a broken family, now made more complex. I could feel Clara's gaze bearing down on me, a hesitant mix of hope and fear that kept me anchored, yet ready to shatter. The world around me collapsed into an unbearable stillness as I realized that the very ground on which I stood was shifting, leaving behind only the shards of a life that had so beautifully woven love and hurt, knotted together in a tapestry of what could have been. In that moment, I understood I had no choice but to face this reality, whether it would bring healing or further heartbreak. Yet as my gaze fell upon Owens, a part of me saw the thread of possibility, a chance to reclaim some semblance of a family, to rewrite the dissonance of betrayal. But even as hope flickered weakly in the dark, I couldn't shake the foreboding that loomed on the horizon. The air buzzed with tension, electric and uncertain, ready to snap if I chose the wrong course. Before I could articulate my thoughts, before I could react, a phone buzzed from my pocket, an erratic sound slicing through the heaviness. It was a message, and as I glanced down, my heart sank deeper into a pit of despair. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "We need to talk about Caleb. I have information that could change everything." The chilling implications of those words loomed over my head like a dark cloud, ready to pour down a storm. I looked up, meeting Owen's curious gaze, and realized that my journey through this labyrinth of grief, discovery, and potential reconciliation was only just beginning. The true revelations lay ahead and, in some unfathomable way, they were about to shift the landscape of our shattered family once more. The silence in the room was suffocating as I processed the shocking revelation that had crashed into our lives. My daughters stood at the periphery of the moment, their expressions a mix of bewilderment and fragile hope. I felt as if the walls were closing in, and the very air throbbed with unspoken words that felt too heavy to lift. Owen, with his bright, youthful face that mirrored Caleb's, just stood there awkwardly, sensing the turmoil swirling around him. I could see the threads of confusion woven across his features, the same ones I had worn long ago. I had never expected to face the child that emerged from the ashes of our broken marriage, yet here he was, a testament to a love I had thought was lost. Caleb remained frozen at the doorway, his eyes darting between me and our new reality. I could feel anger simmering just beneath the surface, a boiling rage at the choices that had led us to this moment. My heart tugged painfully in two directions, wedged between the desire to protect my daughters and the urge to confront the man who had thrust us all into this chaos. "What do you mean I'm here to meet my family?" The question tumbled from my lips, more accusatory than inquisitive. A part of me longed to scream out, to demand why he had come, but the curiosity weighed against my grief. Owen hesitated, glancing at Caleb. I just found out that you were my family. I know it's complicated, but I wanted to meet you." His voice trembled slightly, revealing the uncertainty that chilled the air. "Complicated," I echoed bitterly, feeling the contours of my reality twist even further. I turned to Caleb, my heart pounding. "What is this? What's happening? How could you let this happen?" Caleb opened his mouth but could only manage a strained silence, remaining rooted as if he feared the answer. Just then, Clara's soft voice broke through the haze. "Mom, maybe we should listen to him. He deserves to tell his side, just like we need to understand our past." Her empathic nature shone bright even in the darkest of moments. "Clara, this isn't just about understanding," I replied, my words fraying at the edges. "This is about unspeakable betrayal. How do we reconcile Caleb's choices with the person standing right in front of us?" Owen looked between us, uncertainty morphing into resolve. "I wasn't trying to come between you or anything. I needed to understand who you are. My mother didn't tell me much. Just that there was something special about this family." His eyes held a flicker of yearning that sent a wave of remorse through me. "Your mother?" I whispered, recalling the fragmented memories of Caleb's past, the pieces that had eluded me when I needed clarity. "Yeah, she just said your name." Owen's voice faltered. "I only found out about all this when I turned 18 and saw the documents. I thought maybe you'd want to know me." A profound weight pressed on my chest, as I watched his hope crystallize between us. I glanced at my daughters, whose eyes were now wider than before, full of a complex blend of emotions they couldn't quite place yet. They appeared eager to grasp the possibility that Owen represented, light breaking through the thick fog of despair, but I wasn't so sure. Just as I prepared to respond, my phone buzzed again. This time, the sound sent a shiver down my spine, and the new message illuminated my screen. "If you don't talk to me, you'll regret it. There are things you don't know about him. Things that could ruin everything." My breath caught as I processed the foreboding tone. I glanced back at Owen, the weight of my choices becoming almost unbearable. The potential catastrophe the message hinted at was looming closer, and I felt the fear of losing everything again. "What is it?" Caleb finally asked, breaking the tension. "What are you hiding? What do you know?" Before I could collect my thoughts and share the jarring, life-altering truth suffocating me, the front door swung wide open, pushing a gust of wind into the room. A figure stepped inside, And my heart dropped as I recognized the person who had haunted my dreams, the woman who had once loved. "Caleb, the other mother aboard our tumultuous ship, don't listen to anything he says," she commanded, her voice cold, sharp as ice. "You have no idea what you're getting into." The room closed in around me, the walls now mirrors reflecting a myriad of shattered lives. I felt my daughter's hands clasped tightly around mine, their support somehow both a comfort and a weight. I met Caleb's horrified expression, and I knew our tumultuous history was far from over. Whatever answers awaited us, whatever conventions we hoped to restore, one truth stared us all in the face: we were standing on the edge of a new reckoning, and the choice between darkness and light was slipping irretrievably from our grasp. I had thought the question of Owen's identity would be the tipping point of our pain, but now, confronting his mother sent me spiraling toward a rabbit hole I was terrified to dive into. Would facing this new danger bring us together, or would it raise what was left of our family once and for all? In the silence that flooded the space after her arrival, I felt the wretched coils of an unpredictable destiny tightening, squeezing away the last glimmers of hope. The path ahead was darkening, suffused with fear, and I braced myself for the unimaginable truths that awaited us just beyond the flickering edge of our fragile lives. The tension in the room thickened like an impending storm, crackling with unspoken fears and unresolved wounds. I felt my daughter's fingers intertwine with mine, fragile and shaking. Clara's gaze darted between me and the woman who had just stepped into our lives like a specter from a past that refused to let go. My heart raced as I took a tentative step forward, needing to quell the chaotic emotions swirling inside me. "Why are you here?" I asked the woman, trying to maintain some semblance of composure despite the tremor in my voice. "What do you know that could change everything?" The woman's icy demeanor didn't falter. "You're not prepared for what's coming, I can promise you that. Owen may think he wants answers, but all he'll find is more pain." Her piercing eyes locked onto mine, a challenge lurking behind them. "Is that what you want for your daughters?" "More secrets and lies, Mom. Who is she?" Ava whispered, her voice barely audible, a quiver of fear evident in her tone. The vulnerability of my daughters gripped my heart tighter than ever, as though a vice were closing around my chest. "I am Eva," the woman stated, her name barely a whisper above the whirlwind of my emotions. "Caleb's past is filled with shadows that might swallow you whole if you let it. I tried to protect Owen from them, and I can't stand by and watch him get hurt by this family again." The word slipped through my lips before I could catch it, a tumult of confusion and resentment enveloping me. "What do you mean by again? Like I said, you have no idea what you're getting into." She stepped closer, her gaze softening for the briefest moment as she assessed my daughters. "You've not only opened a door to Owen but also to a darkness that will linger long after you think it's shut." Caleb finally broke his silence. "You can't come back here and fake concern, Eva. You've left us all in ruins, and now you're reappearing during the worst storm of our lives? What do you want?" The hostility in his voice made my chest tighten. Why was it so easy for him to fall back into old patterns of anger? The man I once loved seemed a world away from the frail, broken figure that stood before me now. "Owen deserves to know the truth, Caleb, even if it destroys you," she challenged, and my heart sank deeper into the chasm of uncertainty. "You know the truth, your silence has always been your weapon. And now it's only a matter of time before it all falls apart." Clara's soft voice intervened once more, cutting through the tendrils of chaos that threatened to engulf us completely. "If Owen is really family, if we're supposed to be together, then we deserve the truth. All of it." She glanced at Owen, who stood holding his breath, the boy caught between worlds that did not wish to bend toward one another. "What do you really know about us?" I asked Eva, desperate for any scrap of clarity in the swirling fog of my emotions. She hesitated, a flicker of something dark crossing her features. "There are choices made in the past that haunt us still. Choices that bind Owen to someone you can't ignore. You may think you want him in your lives, but his presence could unravel a web you're not prepared to face." "What does that even mean?" I pressed, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. "Just that the web has threads connecting all of us together, outcomes that can lead to joy or chaos. Choices were made that set this all into motion." Her gaze turned somber as she fixed her eyes onto Caleb. "And those choices were not taken lightly. You may lose everything if you're not careful. The reticence in her expression sent icy trepidation coursing through me. I turned to Caleb, searching for a sign of understanding, some reflection of the man I wanted him to be. Is it true? What choices did you make? What is she talking about? He looked away, shame breaking through, cracking what little armor he had left. I thought I could protect everyone by keeping things buried. The defeat in his voice felt like a knife, twisting deeper into the unseen wounds of our family. That was my mistake. As fear began to run rampant through the household, hope and love felt like distant memories, elusive and far beyond my grasp. Just as I prepared to confront the truth swirling in Caleb's unguarded confession, the silence shattered once more with an unexpected sounded gentle knock at the door. My heart raced, and I exchanged glances with my daughters, each of us silently questioning if anything could further disrupt this already fractured moment. Mom? A hesitant voice called from the other side, recognizable and yet jarring in its timbre. I need to talk to you. The voice formed a new wave of dread as I recognized it belonged to my estranged sister, a woman I had pulled away from out of fear that her own great shadow might taint my fragile family further. What now? I breathed, confronting the universe's taunting cruelty as I prepared myself for another tumultuous revelation that I wasn't sure if I could withstand. My heart weighed heavy with a pregnant pause, each second stretching taut with tension, the air alive with the echoes of a family unraveling, every breath we took threaded with uncertainty, every hope dwindling on the cusp of a profound reckoning. The room trembled with unvoiced tensions as I stood frozen, caught between the chaos of the moment and the relentless pulse of my own racing heart. How could the universe conspire to throw yet another specter from my past into the already turbulent sea of my life? My daughters, the very anchors in my world, looked at me with wide eyes filled with innocence and fear, as though the connective threads binding us together were slowly snapping one by one. Mom, who is it? Clara's voice wavered, a tremor of anxiety beneath her curiosity. I realized then how fragile their world had become, how precariously balanced on the precipice of uncertainty. It was a relentless cycle, this unveiling of truths that I had done my utmost to shield them from. And yet, here we were, on the verge of unraveling everything once more. Just a moment, sweetie, I managed to mutter, forcing the words past the tightening knot in my throat. Stepping away from Eva, whose penetrating gaze weighed heavily on me, I approached the door with hesitance. Would my sister bring more darkness? Or, perhaps, some glimmer of hope amidst the chaos? I hesitated for a heartbeat, the sound of my daughter's quiet breaths reverberating behind me. There was both fear and hope brewing in the silence, as if the air itself was suspended in anticipation of the unexpected reunion. Finally, my fingers brushed against the cool metal of the doorknob, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever revelation lay behind the barrier between us. Mom, Alyssa continued, her voice a whisper filled with urgency, please, I need you. The anguish in her tone drove me to twist the knob, flinging the door wide open and inviting in the storm that had gathered outside. Alyssa stood there, pale and trembling. Her hair, usually a cascade of warmth and life, was disheveled, as though she had been running through the shadows of her own fears. I had to come. I saw everything. You need to listen to me, she urged, her voice breaking slightly. Behind her, dark clouds loomed ominously, sending an ominous shiver through the house. I could feel Caleb's presence hovering in the background, and I turned briefly to see the storm brewing in his expression, an amalgamation of anger, confusion, and pain. What do you mean you saw everything? I pressed, desperately drawing her into our shared space so she wouldn't be swallowed by the shadows waiting outside. Alyssa, what's going on? They're coming, Mom. I don't know how they found out about Owen, but they know. They know everything. We need to protect ourselves, she said frantically, glancing back as if the very shadows were closing in behind her. Her hands shook, and I reached out instinctively to quell her tremors. Protect us from what? Use my forgotten voice, a fierce protector trying to rise amidst the chaos. I already sensed the impact of her words was heavier than I had anticipated. Alyssa hesitated, visibly struggling to convey her thoughts, a whirlwind of emotions battling within her. They said they will take him away. He doesn't belong here, she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. They're saying things I didn't want to believe. Things about Owen's family. Things that point to you and me and everything we tried to bury. The world around me seemed to sway, her words crashing down like waves against a shore already battered by storms of secrecy and doubt. The shadows that Alyssa conjured were not just remnants of the past, they were fresh, tangible, and threatening to engulf us once more. What did you do? Caleb's voice rumbled from behind me, tinged with an edge of disbelief. Do you trust her? Trusting her will only lead to more chaos. Caleb, stop. I yelled, the fierce urgency in my voice tempered by the flickering flame of my own fear. They're coming for Owen because they don't want him here, and we can't let that happen. We can't let the past decide our future, a past that carries weight. Eva intervened coolly, her presence woven into our tangled web of dread. You can't outrun shadows. They clinged up. I turned back to Alyssa, searching her gaze for reassurance. We'll do it together, whatever it takes, I promised, though my heart felt heavy with the burden of uncertainty. There has to be a way to fight back. I don't know if we can. She looked down, the weight of her doubt adding to the heaviness of the moment. But you have to believe me, Mom. It's not just about Owen, it's about all of us. As the truth of her words settled around us, I felt another shattering wave of despair wash over me. What had started as a simple desire to welcome a new family member had quickly spiraled into something so much larger, so much darker. What choices had I made that set all of this into motion, and what price would we pay for the revelations that were about to come? The door creaked behind me, the wind howling like a mournful song as the world outside thrust itself into our fragile space. In that moment, the weight of abandonment loomed, a possibility that my daughters might not feel safe anymore. Not in a world that had always calmed during moments of strife instead of escalating into chaos. But before I could grasp the enormity of it all, a loud crash thundered at the front of the house, startling us all. My breath hitched as I felt the ground beneath us shift. An urgency enveloped me, tension thickening the air. What if the past hadn't just found us? What if it was intent on annihilating everything we had built? Stay close, I warned my daughters, steeling myself, every fiber in my being ignited by fear and a simmering hope. And then a fact danced in the silence, untamed and reckless. The specters were no longer just figments of our past, they had taken form, and their voices were about to shatter our world as we knew it. Night had settled over the house, wrapping it in a shawl of uncertainty as we stood together, cloaked in a deepening sense of dread. The wind's howling intensified outside, echoing the tumult within. The thunderous crash had left us paralyzed, breathless, and with clenched fists, we braced ourselves, knowing our collective strength would be put to the test. Mom, Clara whispered, her small body pressed against me, as if she could physically absorb the fear radiating from my core. I felt the soft tremor in her voice, the way it echoed the unspoken question swirling in the room. Could we really protect ourselves? The very heart of our family felt frayed, threadbare, like an old quilt stretched too tight. Alyssa stepped back, her demeanor shifting from frantic to resolute, though the anxiety in her eyes belied whatever facade she was trying to maintain. I should have told you sooner, she murmured. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to alarm you, but they're already talking about Owen's adoption being evaluated. They don't understand our family. They never will. She glanced at Caleb, who still wore an expression mixed with skepticism and anger. You don't know what it's like for someone to look at you and decide your worth based on where you come from, not who you are, she spat, her frustration spilling over, the pain of her own past pouring into the moment. It was all so intertwined, our present struggles rooted deep within a history that demanded acknowledgement. Enough! I shouted, breaking through the rising tension. This isn't about blame, it's about finding a way to stand together. We have Owen now, and he belongs with us. My voice was fierce, illuminating a flicker of resolve even amidst the despair. Just then, another rattle at the door sent jolts of tension through us again. I shot a glance at Eva, whose unnerving calm felt at odds with the whirlwind outside. Are you sure you want to face this? She asked, her brow slightly knitted, her words sharp yet laced with an unexpected softness. My chest tightened. What do you mean? For all the mess you've made, you stand to lose everything. Or maybe, it's time to let go of the past entirely, Eva said, her eyes narrowing as though she were calculating the outcome of choices yet unmade. The hint of a challenge flared in her tone, begging for a deeper understanding of our broken family ties. Enough with the cryptic warnings. I shot back, grappling with needy uncertainty. We're not turning away from each other now after everything. Every moment has led us here, and I refuse to let fear dictate our fate. We have a choice. Around us, the shadows closed in tighter, implicating us in its dense designs. As the atmosphere thickened with uncertainty, Alyssa's expression morphed from fear to logical determination. Then what's the plan, Mom? How do we fight this? Caleb joined us, breaking through the emotional fog enveloping the room. We need a strategy. If they really are coming for Owen, he paused, the word hanging heavy. We can't wait for things to unravel before we act. I have an idea. Alyssa spoke slowly, her voice taking on a controlled cadence that resonated with purpose. I can reach out to some connections I have. If they're creating rumors, threats against Owen's place, he right could be worth finding out who's orchestrating it. I mean, let's face it, my life has not been without complications. Are you sure you can trust any of those people? I pressed. I can't have you putting yourself in danger again. I won't risk losing another part of this family. And her gaze turned fierce, brimming with familiar defiance. Then I'll fight for him, Mom. You taught me that family is worth fighting for. That promise carried the weight of scars both shared and unshared, of a life spent navigating the jagged edges of love and fear. The silence thickened, and in that moment, we inhaled deeply, drawing strength from one another. A plan was forming, woven through threadbare fears and the hard-won love that encased our hearts. As Alyssa prepared to make her calls, the flickering lights overhead flickered dangerously, mirroring our fragile peace outside. A loud bang disrupted our fragile confidence. A voice called out over the roaring winds. We know you're in there. Come out and face the truth of what you've done. The taunt cracked through the night, a reminder that shadows, once laid to rest, could rise up again, clamoring for truth and blood. What do we do? Clara whispered, her voice small, terrified of the reality unfurling before her. Together, I responded, the word an incantation against despair. My daughters were a part of me, no endless night could strip away that truth. But as I turned to address Caleb, a realization struck me. I hadn't told them everything. There were echoes of my own past that could resurface, secrets buried deep but threatening to breach the surface now more than ever. Could it be that the very essence of my existence, the choices I had made, were precisely the lines that defined the conflict rising against us? In my gut, that truth stirred uneasily, waiting to break through the storm. Just then, an unexpected visitor rounded the corner of the house. My heart plummeted as I recognized the familiar silhouette amidst the chaos. It was someone I had never expected to see again, their arrival heralding chaos, the embodiment of the past returning to reclaim its place. Before I could process the implications or wrap my head around the storm of emotions rising, the door flung open unceremoniously, and I began to unravel. The door burst open with a force that rattled the very foundations of our collective resolve. As I stood rooted to the spot, my heart raced, and an icy tendril of dread coiled around my chest. The figure stepping into our little sanctuary was one I hoped I would never have to face again. Mom? Is that really you? Whispered Clara, her voice trembling, recognizing the shadow of turmoil that had slipped through the storm. I barely registered her whisper. All my focus was consumed by the woman who walked into our lives as though she belonged here, and yet had shattered its stability once before. Jenna, I breathed, the name slipping from my lips like acid. The very syllables dredged up years of repression, emotions that I had buried deep beneath layers of painful memory. The woman who had once been my closest confidant, a sister in spirit, was now a ghost from a time I would rather forget. Jenna's eyes were stormy, reflecting equal parts sorrow and defiance. It's been a long time, she spoke, attempting a boldness that felt brittle under its weight. I didn't exactly expect a warm welcome. Behind her, the tempest howled, creating a chilling backdrop that echoed the turmoil within our family. I could see Alyssa's eyes widen, flashing between disbelief and protective instinct, while Caleb clenched his hands into fists, every bit as uneasy as I felt. A war erupted within me, the instinct to shield my daughters from yet another rupture clashing with the overwhelming need to confront Jenna and the bitter truths she represented. Why are you here? The words emerged from my lips harsher than I intended. You made your choice a long time ago. You walked away when we needed you. Jenna flinched, a flicker of vulnerability slicing through her hardened exterior. I needed to figure some things out, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. I made mistakes, but I'm not the same person anymore. I'm here to make it right, I laughed bitterly, grasping at the frayed edges of my anger. Make it right? How can you even say that? You destroyed everything we worked for. You left us to pick up the pieces. Behind me, Clara stepped forward, the innocent courage of childhood shining through her fear. Why did you come back if it's just going to make everything worse? She asked, her brows furrowing as she looked up at the stranger who used to be an integral part of our lives. For a moment, Jenna's facade cracked, and it felt as if the storm outside receded just a bit. I came because I heard about Owen, she confessed, her gaze dropping to the floor, as if the weight of her own words had rendered her defenseless. I know what happened. Andy didn't think it could happen again. No one should go through what we went through. Not him. The admission carried an unexpected heaviness that lingered in the air, and I felt a flicker of a memory the bonds we had forged entwined with the betrayals that tore us apart. You don't get to just walk back into our lives because you suddenly care, I replied, my voice taut with emotion, but as I spoke, I felt the air shift, an unsettling mingling of past grief intertwining with the hint of possibility. I fought against it. The threads of shared history were like a double-edged sword of love and heartache, and I was terrified of what a reunion might unleash. Alyssa, seeking clarity, stood with the resoluteness of the protector she had become. You think coming here is going to help Owen? We don't need your pity. What happened to him is not a game. Pity is the last thing I'm offering, Jenna replied sharply, her pain laid bare in her eyes. But I can help. I have contacts, people who can provide legal counsel, push back against the evaluation. I know the system, I've lived it. Why should we trust you? Caleb interrupted, his voice low and challenging. The tension in the room thickened, charged like an electric storm ready to explode. Before Jenna could reply, a sharp knock resounded on the door. A voice broke through, low and insistent. We're not going away. If you don't come out now, we'll be forced to take action. I felt my heart race again, the imminent threat hanging heavily. The stakes had shifted yet again, and we were caught in a whirlwind that spun faster by the moment. You don't have to stay, I whispered to Jenna, the words unsteady. You could leave before things unravel further, but as I peered into the tumultuous depths of her eyes, searching for any hint of hope, I saw something else, a reflection of choices we once faced together, a hope against all odds. I won't leave, she said, and in that moment, her determination fused with our shared past, igniting a tumult of possibilities. I won't let them take him like they took us. Clara took a step back, her small hands fisting. What if they hurt you, too? She asked, the innocent fear collapsing upon the weight of what was unfolding. Uncertainty swept through me, the question resonating in the very marrow of my being. Jenna wasn't just here to shield us, she was here because, somehow, she had found herself entwined with our fight. In the midst of the chaos, the lines between guardian and adversary blurred, and I felt the tremor of potential fractures and reconciliations merging into one chaotic tapestry. The muffled voices outside grew louder, encroaching upon our fragile sanctuary with demands that echoed through the night. I turned back to face Jenna, with the question curling on my tongue, the singular truth that had lingered like a shadow. How had we gone so far, yet remained so intertwined? Then let's make a choice, I said, the words tumbling forth like a choice laid bare. If you're willing to fight for Owen, then this storm will show us what we truly want to protect. But as I spoke, a weight pressed down on Meth's specter of the secrets I still hadn't revealed, looming larger amid the thunderous winds. What were the ripples of the past that would soon unfurl in this moment? And as I closed my eyes against the encroaching storm, ready to brace for the fight ahead, a mere flicker of dread lodged deep. What if the truth that could either heal us, or break us irrevocably, was far more devastating than any outside force? We were one act away from the shattering revelation that could cast an even darker shadow over us all. The winds howled louder, and my heart raced with uncertainty, as in that moment, I realized this was merely the beginning. The chaos spun around us, a maelstrom of emotions so deep it almost felt corporeal, threatening to swallow us whole. In those frenetic moments, I could see how my daughter stood at the precipice of inheriting the pain and heartache shaped by the choices of our past. Yet, despite the rising tide of fear, determination ignited within me, a defiance against the storm that sought to rip apart what little semblance of family we had left. As we all stood there, suspended between the past and an uncertain future, I thought of Owen, his innocent gaze caught between us, a mirror reflecting the realities of choices made long before his existence. My heart clenched at the thought of him being taken away, stripped of the chance to know the warmth of family, and I felt an overwhelming need to protect him, protect all of us. The knock echoed again, louder and more insistent, a countdown to a confrontation that threatened to unravel us further. But Jenna, resolute and fierce, stepped forward. "We're not letting them take him," she declared, her gaze fierce as it locked onto mine. There was a kind of strength buried within her, a rebellious spirit that stirred the embers of the sisterhood we'd once shared. "Then we fight," I replied, my voice steadying with conviction. "If they think they can dictate our family's worth, they're gravely mistaken. Owen is as much a part of this family as anyone else. And we will protect him, together." Caleb stepped closer, his expression shifting from disbelief to determination. In that moment, it felt as if we were all drawing strength from each other despite the fissures that ran through our insecurities. "We can't let fear win. We owe it to our family to fight for what we believe in," he said, his voice ringing with newfound resolve. It was as if Head stepped out from the shadow of regret and into a role of protector, something I hadn't expected but welcomed nonetheless. Outside, the demands grew louder, pressing against us like a wall of sound determined to bulldoze our resolve. Taking a deep breath, I steeled my focus on my daughters. I looked at Clara and Lena, two pillars of light standing in defiance to a world that threatened to drown us. "We stand together, no matter what. We fight for Owen, we fight for each other, and we fight for the truth. Families weather storms together, and that's exactly what we're going to do." The resolve settled thickly around us, an invisible cord binding our intentions. Behind Jenna, Alyssa's jaw tightened. I could see the determination glinting in her eyes now too. With her connections, she could weave together a defensive plan solidified through our love and commitment. "Together," they echoed, a united chant rising against the chaos that raged outside. "Together we stand." As we gathered closer, the door trembled under the weight of those outside, but it felt like the world beyond it faded against our determination. We would embrace the storm and face it head-on so that Owen would know he was not alone. None of us were. The sound of the door rattling snapped me back to the reality at hand. "They're not just going to go away," I said, feeling the urgency building. I turned to Jenna. "Do you have any contacts who could help us right here and now?" She hesitated, but then nodded. "Yes, I have someone who can get here quickly. They're familiar with the system and can advise us on what to do next." "Good. Make the call." I pivoted to Clara and Lena. "Can you both check the windows? See if you can get an idea of who is out there." As they moved through the house, surveying the encroaching chaos, I rounded on Caleb, who stood ready yet hesitant. "Just remember, whatever happens, you and I need to be on the same page." I felt the gravity of our past needling at my back, but I grounded myself in the knowledge that the present was where we'd reclaim our future. "I know," he murmured, a tentative smile breaking through. "I'll support you. We'll protect our family." A wave of emotion washed over me, a flood of hope entwined with trepidation, and I felt the armor of resilience wrap around my heart. "Bring your strength, your heart to this. Fight," I urged, meeting his gaze, understanding radiating from our shared resolve. Just like that, a plan began to form, a tide of strategy weaving its way through fear, binding us together in unity and purpose. We would bring light into the darkness that sought to snuff out what had once been a home. "Well?" Clara's voice cut through the tension, and I looked over to see anxious determination dancing in her eyes. "What are we waiting for?" My heart warmed as I witnessed my daughters stepping into their own empowerment, solidifying the foundation I had always dreamed for them. "Nothing," I said, the word cascading with a power I hadn't felt in a long time. "Nothing at all. We face it together." A knock split the air again, and before we could react, the door bursts open to reveal the outsiders' dark figures against the pale light pouring in. My resolve gathered within me like a fortress, unwavering and unbreakable. "We're here for what's rightfully ours," the lead figure called out, their voice a menacing echo that settled like frost in the air. At that moment, fear curled into anger, fueling the passion for our fight. "There's no yours here," I shouted back, my voice powerful and clear, filled with protective fire. As I locked eyes with my family, a kaleidoscope of emotions surged: fear, love, defiance, and it congealed into one collective voice: this family belongs to us, not to the ghosts of the past. My words turned into an incantation against the trauma that had threatened to drown us, and I felt warmth rising from the depths of my heart hollowed by betrayal. As swift as lightning, my family gathered behind me, a sanctuary against the raging storm seeking to infiltrate our lives. We stood together, a defiant front against the tides of fear, ready to face whatever came next. Because in that moment, it became clear, like the storms that rolled over our lives, there was beauty to be found in the resilience we fortified together. The world beyond us thrummed with uncertainty, but we were more than the scars of our past. We were the architects of our future, ready to carve out our truth through the clenched jaws of adversity. The stakes were high, but I felt a surge of unyielding hope. This battle, whatever it held, would never define us. Instead, it would illuminate the bond we had painstakingly built, the threads weaving deeper than pain. In that clarity, my heart whispered a promise to never let go of the love that could rise even in the darkest of storms, holding firm against the rages threatening to engulf us. Let them come, I said, standing tall. Let them see who we are. And together, we stepped into the tempest, each heartbeat echoing a truth we would never forsake: love, unyielding, is always the fierce flame that will burn through the darkness, forever lighting our way.